Hey everyone, welcome back to my Hardcore Forest Survival series. In the last episode, we started turning things around. Between scouting with the metal detector, logging, and feeding our goats, we were doing everything we could to scrape our way out of poverty. I managed to set up a few greenhouses and picked up some starter equipment, but today, I've got a much crazier plan. I took on a scrap metal contract and headed out to the location. But the game quickly brought me back to reality. The map literally wouldn't let me through. I tried searching around, but after that failed, I ended up frustrated and headed back home. On the way back, I realized I'd accumulated a ton of milk that needed to be sold. I also finally fixed that annoying issue with my vehicles getting stuck. I installed a mod that lets me build roads anywhere, bypassing those restricted store zones that were driving me crazy. Getting the milk to sell wasn't easy. I had to carefully load it onto the truck and hunt for the exact pixel to trigger the sale, but I pulled it off, netting nearly 7,000. I also mowed some grass for the goats, since they were running dangerously low on food. After that, I sold the cherry trees. They were good for a bit of cash, and used all the profits to buy 2 pumpkin greenhouses. I invested in some pricey compost, watered everything, and right on cue, it started to rain. Perfect timing. I switched into some dry clothes and decided it was time to expand the grass field. It turned out great. I sowed some high-quality seeds, and after a long day, I decided it was time to call it a night. The grass is coming along well, but it's still too early to harvest. I realize that using a lawnmower to clear these scraps is just beneath me now. I'm ready for the big leagues. So I'm planning a major field expansion to justify buying some heavy-duty machinery. I started by clearing out all the trees, which paid out nicely, then laid down a new road so the loader wouldn't get bogged down in the mud. Removing the stumps was the next step. Then came the plowing. Honestly, it used to be kind of meditative, but at this scale, it's a real grind. But get this, I actually managed to hire a worker. It was a total game changer. Watching someone else do the heavy lifting was incredibly satisfying, even if I had to go back and clean up a few spots myself. But the field is finally ready. You can't call it small anymore. By evening, I decided to invest in a log storage unit. At first, I thought it was a genius move, but the reality hit pretty fast. The loading point is all the way on top, and since I don't have the right equipment yet, getting the logs up there is a nightmare. I spent 20 minutes fighting with it before I realized it just wasn't working. The next day, I mowed the rest of the grass, though only a small section was ready. I spotted some great gear on sale at the shop, and I was tempted to pull the trigger, but decided to hold off for now. Instead, to solve my milk hauling problems once and for all, I picked up this new shed. It'll store the milk and handle the sales automatically. Huge upgrade. With a bit more cash in the bank, I pulled the trigger on a new mower collector trailer. Great piece of kit, but it needs a tractor to pull it. I could try hitching it to my pickup, but that would just look ridiculous, right? So I decided to let it sit tight until I could afford the real deal. And I didn't have to wait long. Suddenly, it started snowing. I wasn't expecting that, but hey, this is forest life. I decided to focus on logging to boost my funds and get that grass harvested before it froze over. I also sold off all the wood from storage and eventually the storage unit itself. I finally had enough for a proper tractor. I picked this model with the front hitch. It just looked like the best fit for what I needed. I started collecting the grass, and honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The good news, I cleared almost the whole field. The bad news, I only ended up with 6,000 liters. That is, practically nothing. I spent ages driving around trying to scavenge a bit more, but it just wasn't happening. I guess it'll do for now, but considering how much work I put into that field and how much money I dumped into the ground, getting less than a single $1,500 bale is pretty disheartening. I'm seriously thinking I either need a new goat shed that handles bales properly, or I'd have to scale the field up by 5 or 10 times, which, let's be real, makes no sense. Another thing that's been bugging me is leaving my equipment out in the elements. So, I carved out some of the budget for a decent shelter. It's the cheapest one available for 10 grand, but hey, it's better than nothing. I moved everything under cover and picked up an electric power washer. Giving the gear a good scrub after all that time in the mud felt incredibly satisfying. I even got my first look at the snow before it melted away. Something new popped up on the property. Looks like a pile of scrap metal. I'm not sure how to move it yet, so I'll deal with that later. Right now, the priority is the new goat shed. Back to clearing land. I had to level it out and get it prepped. After some heavy lifting, I managed to get it flat and put up a fence. I dropped $60,000 on a large enclosure and immediately tested it with some store-bought bales. It works like a charm. Finally, some genuinely good news in this hardcore run. I also made a bit of an impulsive buy. I picked up some sheep, but they were so dark I couldn't even tell if the game was bugging out or if they were just really shadowy. Either way, I decided to invest in both goats and sheep to see which one was actually profitable. After a while, they produced 500 liters of milk and some wool. But here's the kicker. I thought the wool would be worth something, but it's dirt cheap compared to the milk. Talk about weird game logic. So, yeah, I think I've officially learned that sheep are a bad investment. After that, I decided to play it smart. I started saving up, spending only on new goats, feed, and compost for the greenhouses. A few months flew by, and that's when I decided to try out a small-scale compost production setup. I was really curious to see how it worked, especially since I noticed you can process not just the hard-to-get stuff, but even basic grass and straw. I bought a straw bale to test it out. Logic dictated that I should get an equal amount of compost back, around 9,000 liters, and to my surprise, it worked like a charm. I decided to let it stockpile for now. If I'm lucky, this means I'll never have to buy store-bought compost again. And get this, I can actually sell the excess, and the price point is pretty sweet, $500 per 1,000 liters. It sounds like a solid business plan. Once the first batch of straw was processed, I had several pallets of compost ready to go. 9,000 liters from a single bale, absolutely incredible. I went ahead and bought 2 more bales and set the compost to distribute so it automatically feeds into the greenhouses. Naturally, I also put some up for sale, which, for a hardcore survival run, is basically printing money. I've decided not to add a second composter, though. I don't want to turn this into a money exploit. One is enough. In the long run, I want it dedicated entirely to the greenhouses. I'm not trying to take the easy way out here. My first major purchase with the profits was this. I call it the Tree Destroyer. Cost me $42,000, and I picked it up to keep expanding the land. The first problem? My tractor really wasn't prepared for the strain. I grabbed a 3-ton counterweight, which helped with stability, but then a new issue popped up that only a new tractor can solve. The speed is painfully slow. I prepped the area and laid down gravel, hoping it would make moving around easier. And it did. The tractor stopped getting bogged down. But the operating speed is just a limitation I'll have to live with for now. By the next morning, I'd completely finished clearing the area. I sold off my older goats and replaced them with more productive ones. I even started selling the offspring so I wouldn't have to spend 8 months feeding them just to have them take up space. Once I had enough saved up for my next big move, I built a dairy plant. The plan is to boost my milk profits. Right now, 1,000 liters goes for about $3,000. But if I bottle it, I can get around 4,500. That's a 50% increase. Definitely worth the effort. The first batch is ready, but I'm holding off until the market prices spike. Things took a turn after I downloaded a few more mods for future episodes. Suddenly, the in-game shop just broke. The spawn point for new equipment ended up under the map. You've got to see where it teleported my truck. It was absolute madness. After some troubleshooting, I found the culprit, a mod that was completely wrecking my farm, and got it removed. And on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap up episode 2. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.